Thank you for joining us for today's session, Unlocking Your Potential by Understanding Yourself and Others. My name is Daniel Anzueto, and I'm grateful to welcome you to today's session. If this is your first time attending one of our workshops, please let me provide some context on Startout. Startout accelerates the growth of the LGBT community to drive our economic empowerment, building a world where every LGBTQ entrepreneur has equal access to lead, succeed, and shape the workforce of the future. I'm excited to introduce our host for today's session, Eric Shepard, Executive Director of the Foundation for Talent Transformation. The floor is yours, Eric.
That's great. Thank you so much, Danny, and welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out. It's so easy as an entrepreneur and a leader to get distracted by the day-to-day pressures of starting up your business and running your business that sometimes it slips the mind that you also need to work on yourself and to develop yourself ready to be resilient and a good leader. So congrats to you for attending, for picking this up, and also to acknowledge Startout and the worldwide community that we all belong to, where we tend to help each other out. So I will put my contact details in the chat, and if for any reason you'd like to reach out to connect, feel free to. Certainly very ready, willing, and able to help. I think just another thought worth mentioning at the beginning of this webinar is that human connection is so important for our mental health. And that's part of the reason that the Foundation for Talent Transformation has this mission to understand ourselves and others in order to form meaningful connections with others. These meaningful connections are good for our health and longevity, which when you're as old as I am, starts becoming more important. So just to let you know, as you heard, my name's Eric Shepard. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm not originally from Miami Beach. I was born and raised in London, UK. I came here back in the early 90s. Started a few businesses, sold a few businesses, and then settled on one specific business. And that one built from just a few employees to about 150 employees worldwide. We had about 2,000 customers. And in around the 2018, 2019 timeframe, I was getting burnt out and decided that it was time to sell the business. And sold that business in 2021. And at that point, took some of the money we'd made and put it into the Foundation for Talent Transformation. And we operate a website and have an app, and it's all geared around the mission to help people understand themselves and others so that they can participate effectively and thrive personally and professionally. So that's what I do. It's a brief background about me. I'm going to walk you through a few slides. You are welcome to put questions into the chat. I'm going to rely on Danny to call out the questions from time to time. So we won't kind of answer every question immediately. If we don't get to your question today, feel free to email me. As I said, I put the details in the chat. Happy to answer questions later. So are you ready? Because if you are, we're going to share the slides here and start talking about learning to unlock your potential by understanding others. So as an executive of as a CEO of a company or CEO of companies for 30 years, some of the lessons that I'm going to kind of share with you escaped me during my tenure. And that's why I'm kind of keen to share with them. Some of them I knew, but some of them I didn't know. And you know, in this theory of standing on the shoulders of others, you can hopefully reach higher places by some of this grounding. So what we're going to go through is the biology of emotions and feelings, your needs. We have a lot of content to cover, so I'm going to go through this introduction fairly quickly. Unconscious incompetence through to unconscious competence, personas, how you show up. Why are we different is a question. Why are we different? And then some issues of self-awareness around leadership styles and finding your purpose and values and traits. So there is a a bias, by the way, of it's kind of if you know something, you assume everybody else knows it. And so some of this, there is probably a number of you that already know this. What I'd like to do is just kind of surface the idea about this. And then if you want to learn more, you can go and learn more about emotions and feelings. But we can think about on top of the brain stem, on top of the kind of the spine, we have the reptilian brain. And on top of the spine, is where we trigger emotions like anger, fear, joy, sadness, surprise. And this triggers us to run away or to fight or to freeze. So these are very primitive reactions that we have. And in the modern day world, unfortunately, those things get triggered and we act maybe not in the best interest of the situation. And luckily, we were given a neocortex and a prefrontal cortex. This is more of a thinking part of the brain. And so we can look at our emotions and saying, you know what, being angry at this moment is probably not going to improve the situation. So let me just moderate my reptilian brain and let me just try and act more appropriately. So that comes under emotional intelligence, like recognizing emotions, managing your emotions, recognizing emotions in others, etc. We're not going to be covering that today, but I did want to just recognize and call out these triggers and emotions because they affect how we show up. The other thing that affects how we show up is our needs. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. So physiological need. We need food, water, sleep, shelter, etc. We need safety and security. If we constantly feel under threat, then we are completely distracted by that. And that extends also to financial security. And then we get to a point up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for love and belonging. We need to have friendships and connectivity, sexual intimacy, a sense of connection. And interestingly, that with the rise of apps and social media, we might think we're connected to many people, but maybe we're not as deeply connected as our physiology might appreciate. Self-esteem. So as an entrepreneur, you kind of often out on your own. You need this self-esteem, you need confidence, even when you're stepping in to the unknown. The more you do it, the more self-esteem you develop. So step outside your comfort zone and develop that confidence. It's not just going to come to you. You're going to have to go through the school of hard knocks to get there. And self-actualization. This is where you're very well connected to your morals, your creativity, etc. If our needs are met, we tend to enjoy feelings of being affectionate and engaged, excited and grateful and peaceful, refreshed. So if our needs are met, we tend to enjoy those kind of things. If our needs are not met, we tend to have these kind of feelings come up, like being afraid, being confused, being fatigued, being tense. We have these kind of things. So we're going to go through a few questions here. Now, we're not going to track the responses to an individual level. This is to kind of help stimulate some thoughts. And so we're going to start off with one of the questions that Danny will bring up for us. How often do you feel your needs are met? So it goes 1 through, it does go through 1 through 10, by the way. So 10 is always on my particular screen. It's showing that I'm having to scroll. So you just be aware of that how often are your needs met? So 1 is never, and 10 is always. So we're going to go through these polls pretty quickly because I'd like you to recognize whether that your needs are met. That's kind of helpful. All right, so we're going to do a 3, 2, 1. I'm going to share the results. I'm not quite sure how this works in a live environment. Are you seeing the results, Danny?
Yes. So
Good.
it looks like we've got about 7% of folks that are at a 9, 14% are at an 8, 7% are at a 7, 36% are at 6, and another 36% at 5. So median being somewhere between 5 and 7.
Perfect. Yeah, and I can see it on my side. I wasn't quite sure how it was being broadcast to the audience. So we're going to go to the next question, which is, how often do you feel others care about you? So we just start the next poll. And again, we're going to be fairly quick on this one. So get your votes in. Generally, your first feeling is the right one. So I'm going to end the poll and we'll display the results. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to read out the percentages that Danny did kindly before, but we can see it's kind of an interesting distribution here. So I would say that there are kind of some actions that you might think about taking, of finding people on the, well, people at the lower end of the scale. Find people that in your life that will care about you, because you're going to find it easier to take the stresses and strains of being an entrepreneur if someone's got your back. And I know what it's like, being on the forefront, and it's not easy. So, having supportive people around you is definitely worth getting. So, I should have shared the results. Did I share the results? Okay, there we go. Sharing the results, not sharing the results. Let's go to the next poll. Do your emotions impact your ability to learn? So that's up. You should be seeing that go, rapid succession, so we can see the results. Perfect. So we're going to do a 3, 2, 1. Get your votes in. 3, 2, 1, and share the results. I think I'm showing the results. Interesting distribution. I would say emotions do actually impact our ability to learn, and sometimes we just have to manage those emotions to show up at the right place at the right time in the right way. And so let's go to next one. How well do you manage your emotions? So it's not easy when you're an entrepreneur and you've got a lot of things going on that are going right or wrong and stuff. But how well do you manage your emotions? Great stuff. The first thought that comes into your head, we're not going to report back. It's not going to go on your permanent record or anything. So this is helpful. We're going to end the poll. 3, 2, 1, and share the results. So we got a interesting. Generally, we're seeing people feel that they're managing their emotions well, which is good, and I encourage you to learn about that. This, as I said, this session we're not going to talk about emotional intelligence. That could be another session, but emotional intelligence is certainly worth learning about. Then, how are you feeling at the moment? At this moment, I just made you answer 5 questions. How are you feeling? Are you feeling irritated? Are you feeling content? So those who might be feeling irritated with me, I apologize. I promise there'll be less questions, but the interaction at the front here is kind of helpful. All right, so I'm going to end the poll. 3, 2, 1. Again, we've got a great distribution of things. So we've got people feeling content and people feeling a little bit irritated. So again, feel free to put a comment in the chat if you want to offer any directions so you feel less irritated. That would be helpful. All right, so I'm going to talk now about a concept that I announced at the beginning called unconscious of our incompetence. And I'm going to very quickly go through this, and I'm going to go through it again kind of to explain that a bit more. So conscious of our competence. So what I'm hoping to do during this workshop, this webinar, is for things you don't even know about, I would like you to get to the point where you don't know it. Because when you don't know it, you stand a chance of researching it and finding it. And whatever your learning preference is, whether it's watching a video, reading a book, or reaching out to friends, you'd have a subject that you could search for or discuss. So if you're unconscious of some incompetence, I'd like to get you to a point where you're conscious of your incompetence, because then you have a chance of learning about it. And I would say in my career as a CEO, there was many times that I was unconscious of my incompetence, and unfortunately, I didn't have people around me that could be clipping me around the ear and saying, "Hey, you should learn a bit more about this." So that's a great thing about friends. That's a great thing about people that care for you, and they have the courage to stand up for you and say, "Hey, you might want to learn about that." When we have been learning, we become conscious of our competence. And then eventually we just use it in our everyday life. We don't even think about it. The easiest way I've found to explain this is to think of about a baby in a car seat. A baby in a car seat does not know they cannot drive. And when we reach a certain age, we realize we cannot drive. Maybe we can't even reach the pedals, but we realize we can't drive. Then we get to a point where we're learning and we're all fingers and thumbs, and it's all a bit scary, but we're learning to be competent. And then eventually we get to a point of unconscious competent. Like in driving, we just jump in a car, and if we can drive, we'll drive. And managing our emotions and our values and leadership and showing up the way that people need us to show up as a leader, eventually you'll get up to the higher levels there. So, but while we're thinking about driving, there's some curious thing about people sitting in the car, that they empower themselves beyond the ways that they should be. So that you experience road rage, and maybe as a younger person, I would have done that, but now I just roll my eyes and go, really, we're all on this planet together. We're just trying to get from A to B. Let's not get irritated with each other. But I use this as an illustration to talk about how we show up. Okay, so how we show up depends on who we are, like our inner core, which is kind of developed by nature and nurture. So our personal values, our identity, personal traits, interests, life experiences, and also our DNA. This is all part of kind of who we are, which is influences how we show up. On top of that, we can learn these social emotional skills. So social emotional skills would say, oh, I am aware of my surroundings. I'm aware of other people. I'm aware of my relationships. And even though I screwed up, I need to fess up and clean up because I screwed up. So those kind of social emotional skills, resilience is another example, are key to how we show up. Then we get to the situation that we're in. So if you're in a healthy home, you come home, there's warm, loving people there, and aesthetically it's delightful, and then you're going to show up differently than if you go into a toxic home where people are shouting and screaming and drinking and bad behaviors all around. It's going to be more difficult. It's going to be different for the way you show up. Same in a thriving workplace, and so as entrepreneurs, you have the responsibility to develop an atmosphere, a culture to have a thriving workplace, because people will show up differently. If you have a very dictatorial kind of style, it might be considered toxic. So you have to kind of balance that, because it's your responsibility of how other people are going to show up. Not only how you show up, but how other people show up. Other example situations would be a sporting event, a restaurant, and meetings. We just show up differently depending on the situation. And then we have our personas that so we will be different at a sporting event. So we're going to have another poll here. It says, classic question in our community, what makes us different? Is it nature or is it nurture? So I think the poll is up. See the votes come in. If you, again, we'll do it quickly so we can. Yeah. All right, so I'll give you a 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll, and we're going to share the results. And interestingly, just to talk to this for a second, some personality traits are more driven by nature, and some personality traits are more driven by nurture. I agree with the poll results. It's generally more to do with nurture than it is to do with nature, but there are attributes that are driven by nature. Now we're going to go to the next poll. Here we go. Are there benefits of being different? And no, none, or numerous. All right, so first reactions are the best ones. And for speed and engagement, I'm going to do another 3, 2, 1 countdown. So 3, 2, 1, end poll. Here we go. We share the results. And yes, I believe there's numerous advantages for us being different. And this is why diversity, equity, and inclusion is not only good for individuals, it's good for business, because you have a wider field of vision about what's going on. You have more ideas. And so we all seem to be on the page for there are numerous benefits for us being different. Okay, so why are we so different? Nature, there are predispositions that come from DNA. It's predominantly by nurture. There are experiences that we experience in our mother's womb. So if our mother was stressed all the time, or wasn't getting proper nutrition, or there was arguments and etc., that would have an influence on the development of the baby. And then, of course, nurture the simple things like food and nutrition and sleep and feelings of safety and stress. If you grow up with any of this, of the bad side, you're going to be different than someone who that grew up with all the privileges. So I'm just going to give you some examples of what happens when you have a dysfunctional upbringing with negative life experiences and successful upbringing with positive life experiences. So distrust of others. You can imagine if you've been shifted around from foster parent to foster parent, you've had issues with the people in your community. Maybe it's a gang-related area. You're going to develop mistrust. And then fear and anxiety. If you don't know how to deal with that, if the world feels like a very limiting space, you're going to grow up with fear, anxiety. The others on the side, emotional resilience. You can have a negative self-perception. Everybody else is doing so well, but I'm not. Challenges with forming healthy relationships. If you've seen broken homes and you've seen all these bad relationships, then that's your pattern of existence, and you'll whereas healthy relationships on the other side. Recurrent emotional flashbacks and triggers. So this is ACEs, or the acute childhood experiences where it's like PTSD, that you'll get flashback of bad experiences. Poor physical health. Poor or mental health issues versus mental well-being. You may engage in risky behaviors, or you might be irresponsible. So I like to think of this as kind of a jigsaw puzzle, that if you're growing up in in a good environment, and you're living in a healthy home, and you've got great people around you, you've probably picked up more of the puzzle pieces to have a successful life than if you're in one of those unhealthy, dysfunctional places. So think of these as kind of puzzle pieces, And as I said earlier, I'm trying to bring you to the point where you realize, oh, I'm missing that puzzle piece. That's why I'm struggling. So, but now you're missing it, you can go find it. So the good news is you can develop skills to move you from these challenges on the left to the places on the right. But it takes work and effort. You're turning up to this webinar today, this workshop to develop these things. So you're on a good step. You know that lifelong learning is important. Learning about yourself and others is important. Just to show how this can kind of manifest itself in another dimension is, I love this picture because this lady is looking at this gentleman, with great empathy, not judgment. She's got empathy. She's going, hey, you've lived a difficult life. You've had some psychological scars. You've had challenges, clearly. And the guy is kind of looking at her, and we can all interpret how he might be feeling, but it's like, oh, thank goodness, someone who cares, And the sign on side, once I was like you. I mean, caring for one another is just so critical. And but we also see work situations where maybe people are arguing, and it's like, wait a minute, everybody's emotional brain is being triggered. It's not actually being constructive. We need to take a time out. And but part of these are because we don't know the history of the people. Why did that thing trigger this person? Something's triggered them. But it's kind of do whatever is necessary. Be empathetic that we don't know about their journey. You don't know about their journey. So it's not that they're being ugly and awkward on purpose. It's just they've had life experiences that maybe you haven't, or maybe the roles are reversed. So just be aware of that when you're leading your teams and leading yourself and dealing with all those challenges of leading an organization, whether it's just yourself or whether it's others. Now we're going to think about leadership styles. Again, are you leading yourself? Are you leading your community? Where are you leading? There's two dimensions we generally think about leadership styles. One's introversion and one's extroversion. So introversion is more about you draw energy. You feel empowered when you're on your own. And extroversion is when you feel empowered when you are with others. So if you think of tonight, you have a choice of staying at home and doing something by yourself, or you're going to go out and mix with 10 friends. It's going to be a lively environment. That would kind of give you a clue whether you tend to make choices about being introversion and extroversion. Now, when people do this, where am I on this scale? Like, oh, well, clearly it's got to be better at this end of the scale or that end of the scale. But so here's a few famous people that are famous introverts. Bill Gates, he did reasonably well for himself. Barack Obama, he led the country, the USA, for 8 years. Mother Teresa from Calcutta, a wonderful lady. Rosa Parks had the courage to sit on the front of the bus. So these are famous introverts, but they had impact on our history. And then famous extroverts, Oprah Winfrey, famous. Martin Luther King, he did a lot. Sheryl Sandberg, if you're not aware of her, was the COO of Facebook, an amazing lady, and Tony Robbins, a public speaker. So, don't think, to be socially acceptable, I should be at this end of the scale or that end of the scale, because that's not the case. So this one, I'm not going to ask for a poll on this, but I would like you to kind of just make a note of your number, whatever your number is. Just make a note, because we're going to come back to where you are sitting on this a bit later on. So got your number, remember it, or so next one, thinking and feeling. This is the other scale that we often use to think about how leadership works. So feeling, do you tend to lead with empathy? Or thinking, do you lead with logic? Generally, when you listen to people's conversation, they will say, oh, I feel this is the right decision, or I feel we should be doing this. So you hear it in the vocabulary. In thinking, that's like a more logical approach, justification with facts. Again, no judgments about the right way or the wrong way. It just is. We are just people and we're doing our thing. If we think of famous empathetic leaders, we can think of Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Jacinda Ardern, if you don't know who she was, she is she was the Prime Minister of New Zealand during the pandemic, and she was kind of well thought of as of a senior leader leading with empathy. And then Princess Diana, another leader with empathy. Thinking leaders, like more logical people, Angela Merkel led Germany for many years, Jeff Bezos, Thomas Jefferson helped write the Constitution, Margaret Thatcher. These are very much logic-driven thinking kind of leaders. So we've got a scale for this going from 1 to 10. So 1 at the bottom, 10 at the top. And what I want you to do is put those two numbers together. So where you are on this scale, like pick a number, work out which quadrant you're in, and then remember your number from previously, which quadrant you're in. So what you now have is a quadrant that you're sitting in. I'm going to explain to you what these are. And what you got to remember is that it depends on how you show up. Remember, we dealt with that before, how you show up. So you might be, in some circumstances, you are more in the middle. Although you might, let's say you've graded yourself a 7 and a 7. You might end up a 5 and a 5 in some circumstances. In other situations, you might turn up at others. So it isn't locked in. Like some assessments might put you specifically in a quadrant and people feel locked in. But part of the reason we call the organization talent transformation is because you actually transform based on the situation. You transform through social emotional learning. Okay, so let's go through the quadrants. First, your thinking extrovert tend to be ambitious, assertive, bold, competitive, demanding, determined, intentional. And all of those that landed in that quadrant go, yeah, that feels like me. And then actually, you don't say that feels like me because it is like me. These are facts. This is a fact about me because you're thinking extrovert. You're not a feeling person. I said jokingly, you are, of course, feeling, but you might not use the word feeling in your vocabulary. Okay, so now we have feeling extroverts. And feeling extroverts, you want them to organize your parties. You want them to, if you got some kind of lunch coming up and you're getting a group of people together, these folks are great at this. Enthusiastic, expressive, friendly, outgoing, personable, persuasive, vibrant, great people. And these are great people too. These are feeling introverts. They tend to kind of sit down and have a conversation with you. They're very collaborative. They're compassionate. They're contributing, nurturing, supportive. They're very patient. They're understanding. So if they were at extreme, these would be them. They might move to the center and have other qualities. But we're talking about what's generally happening in these quadrants. And then the last one is the thinking introvert. So they tend to be cautious, detailed, disciplined, intentional, investigative, methodical. So all of these qualities are good. And when you're picking your team members, you might want to think, oh, I need cautious person. This is a quality assurance role, or this is someone who needs to kind of lead a group. I'll pick this other role. So you can think about people's introversion, extroversion, thinking and feeling when you're picking people, and also how you are showing up to the world. So what if we overuse our style? So sometimes I call this a cloud and a silver lining because they kind of come together, but a yin and yang is just as applicable. So if you overuse your thinking extrovert style, you're going to be seen as bossy, domineering, forceful, insistent, pushy, relentless, tyrannical. So it's worth being aware of that, because if you're under stress, that's when this kind of stuff comes out. You become more of this style. Unless you're aware of it, then you go, wait a minute, this style might not actually work for me in this situation. I want to be a different kind of style. In the extrovert, the feeling, remember the party planners, here they might become erratic and frenzy and impulsive, indiscreet, manic, overeager, theatrical. So again, whether it's stress brings it out, or they're just extreme in this domain, then so be it. And introverts, feeling introverts, they can kind of get needy and helpless and obstinate and passionate. Like, never upset these people. They're going to come for you. the passive, tedious, unimaginative, uninspiring, and then the thinking introvert, aloof, detached, distrustful, indecisive, pretentious, unapproachable. So there's a yin and a yang. There's we all got it. And as you recognize it, go, oh, look, I'm doing that thing again. You can even say to people, look, when I get stressed, I do this thing. Can you just like nudge me and I'll do better? Because most people want their boss to be good. They want their colleagues to be good. They want their partner to be good. They want their friends to be good. And so, connecting with those others to say, yeah, when I start being stupid, like, can you just be a good friend and help me through that? All right. Another thing that drives who we are and what we do is our purpose. So why were we here? What are we doing? And so here we're going to do a couple of polls here. And the first one is, how strong is your sense of purpose? So Danny's going to bring that up for us. And it's how strong is your sense of purpose? Not strong or very strong. So 1 is not strong and 10 is very strong. And again, we're going to go through this reasonably quickly. So we'll do a 3, 2, 1, and we'll end the poll. And typically we would see in entrepreneurs reasonably strong sense of purpose. If you feel like you're not quite sure what you're doing or why you're doing it, then the next little session, you'll find it very helpful. And the ones with a strong sense of purpose will go, oh, yeah, I got that. I didn't even know I got that. But, they're going to go up to their conscious of their competence. So next question. How much time have you spent developing your sense of purpose? It'd be nice to cross-reference this one with the previous one. But how much time have you actually spent trying to develop your sense of purpose? And Danny stop sharing. I probably have to stop sharing this. Oh. There we go. Thank you, Danny. How much time have you spent developing your sense of purpose? So not a lot of time or lots of time. No, what I was going to say was, I suspect, but we don't have the way to work this out, that people who have a stronger sense of purpose have actually spent time thinking about it and working it out. So we're going to do a 3, 2, 1 and end the poll and share the results. So it's good to see most of you have spent time developing a sense of purpose. It doesn't, come in the mail. You don't get like a letter and it says, by the way, your sense of purpose is this. You don't get it from friends or family. It's kind of something you got to work out yourself. And there's a lot of benefits to understanding your sense of purpose. So I'm going to kind of help you with a few things here. So here we go. If you know where you're going, you have clarity in decision making. Because, if I'm going to Orlando, I know I've got to pull out onto the 95 and go right and north and go up to Orlando. If I don't know where I'm going, decision making becomes much harder. It feeds our motivation and resilience because we know where we're going and know why we're going there. When going gets tough, we go, yep, it was going to be tough. If it's going to be easy, everyone would do it. So you have a sense of resilience. You also have a sense of fulfillment. I'm actually making progress. It's not a goal that I get to and then the goal evaporates. I've got to find another goal. It's kind of the guiding light. It's the compass for moving you forward. You have stronger relationships because you tend to show up to the people that are attracted to the person that you are. You're being authentic. You kind of, your purpose, what you're doing, why you're doing it. So you end up with stronger relationships. You tend to attract people that go, yep, I'm in. You have improved mental health. You're not second guessing yourself all the time. And you tend to find it easier to align with your goals when you have a sense of purpose, because you know why you're setting the goals. So that's kind of key. So I thought I'd share my purpose. And there's multiple dimensions to this, but I thought this was the simplest thing. I put this actually on my LinkedIn profile. So I like collaborating with others to pioneer transformative change to foster well-being and prosperity for all. So that's kind of what I do. You know, when the going gets tough, I go, wait a minute, this is what I'm trying to do. This is I'm pioneering transformative change, and I do that in various forums that we don't need to go into now. But you can put these kind of statements together, and remember that developing your purpose, it's like a recipe. You can't just have, even in a tomato soup, just have tomatoes. You have to have other things as well, and people will perfect their recipes and they'll refine their recipes. So it takes ingredients, it takes a number of factors. It's not just one thing. Personal values is one of these things that you put together that they feed your purpose. So for instance, if you're extremely caring, you might struggle in having a purpose to develop weapon systems. If you have a value of conservation, you might struggle with oil exploration. You know, so you can see of those kind of examples how these values, which are inherent to you, will guide your purpose. And so it's well worth understanding this about yourself. I put a QR code there that links off to our assessment. Hopefully, you'll stay with us to the end of the hour together, and we can share all these details later. But typical value, achievement. Do you value achievement? Do you value caring? Do you value conservation, enjoyment, equality and justice, freedom, respect, stability, tradition? And when you understand those, you're going to find it easier to move your life forward in a way that resonates with your values. The values we can put out in this kind of matrix form. Just it's another way of thinking about this stuff. So on the left, we've got focused on ourselves, and on the right, we've got focused on others. At the bottom, we've got acting with others, and at the top, we've got acting alone. So as we go through them, if you're acting alone and focused on others, you tend to be caring and helpful and loyal, loving. Focused on others might be tradition, respect, being humble, equity and justice, focused on others and acting with others, enjoyment. So this is just a way that we can map it together, knowing what the big things are and then how the values kind of map to that. Freedom, achievement, conservation, respect. All right, so I think we might actually be able to get through all of these slides. So I'm really happy about that. So discovering your purpose, there's a great system developed by the Japanese. It's called Ikigai. There's been a few books about it, and it's a great way to help you develop your purpose. So for those of you that are looking to develop your purpose, or you've worked it out, you've done some work on it, this is it might be a useful tool for you. So let's kind of break this down. We've got what you love at the top, and we've got what the world needs on the right. And that's kind of your mission. It's what you love to do. It's what the world needs. So these might be a mission to solve world hunger because it's what you love and it's what the world needs. You might not be paid for it, but it's good stuff. Now you got what the world needs and what you will be paid for. So that will be your vocation. It might not take a lot of skill to do it, but the world needs it and they'll pay you to do it. And then there's a profession. It's what you're good at, what you're skilled at, and what you can be paid for. So as an exercise, you can kind of go through this, or the last one I should point out is what you're good at, what you love, and that's your passion. That's what wakes you up in the morning. And if you can put all these things together, you're golden. And that's kind of the center of this, the Ikigai. Again, there's a QR code there that will take you to an article, which is finding your purpose. So, and as an exercise for you, you can go through each one of those circles and say, what is it that I love? What is it? What does the world need as it relates to me? What can I be paid for? And you can do this at a business level, and you can do it at an individual level. All right, personality traits. So this is often taught in schools and colleges. But here we're going to just go through it in what does it mean from being an entrepreneur? We have to show up the way we are. We have to be authentic leaders. So these are the typical personality traits. It's often called the ocean model: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So we're going to go through some questions here. As you may have suspected, how open are you to new experiences? So Danny's got the poll up for us. How open are you to new experiences? I'm going to do this fairly quickly. And we're going to end the poll. And we're going to share the results. And there is, of all of these questions, I should have said it before, there is no right or wrong answer. It's just the way we are. It's the way we show up. Well, it's not really the way to show up because we can modify that with social emotional intelligence, but your core is who you are. And being open to experiences, if you know you're open to experiences, that helps you manage your working life and your personal life. There's a yin and yang here. You know, you think, oh, it's really good to be open to new experiences, but then you could end up not actually doing anything because you're constantly open for new experiences, as opposed to if you're more closed to experiences, you might just get on and do something. Might be the wrong thing. You might not experience things much. So there's a yin and yang, and just ask yourself, like, this idea, this experience, it's new. Why am I saying yes? Why am I saying no? Just in as you kind of run your life and your experiences. You might generally not be open, but in certain circumstances, you might want to be open. So I thought I'd shared the results. Okay, well, there's the results. Sorry, I was trying to talk about that while I was sharing them. All right, so let's go to the next one. So how conscientious are you? So wait a minute, did I help? Yeah, I think, Danny, I need you to put up the next one. Yes, thank you. I think I may have clicked something inappropriately on my side, so apologize for that. So how conscientious are you? And again, we're going to do it fairly quickly. 3, 2, 1. And here we go, share the results. That's good. Yeah, and as an entrepreneur, you have to be conscientious, but sometimes you have to let the details slip because otherwise you can't get things done. It's perfection is the enemy of getting things done. But now you've thought about that. And the next question, where are you on this scale? Introversion to extroversion. Where would you position that? We saw that earlier, and it's also in the ocean model of personality traits. Where are you in introversion, extroversion? That's great. And we're going to bring this poll to a close. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And here we go. So we can see there's a nice balance across the spectrum here, demonstrating, you know, to be an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert, you have to be an introvert. You are who you are, you're just working in a certain way. So let's go to the next one. Stop sharing that. So how agreeable are you? How agreeable are you? By the way, I would say generally I'm on the less agreeable scale. That shouldn't influence your vote or anything, but all right. So we're going to end the poll. We're going to share the results, And here we go again. There's some of us that think we're agreeable, and some of us don't think we're agreeable, and that's just fine. And then, how neurotic are you? How do you, uh, how, it's linked to anxiety. Are you anxious? Are you, or are you, constantly calm and in good shape? Yeah. And we're going to do a 2, 1. All right. Ending the poll. And again, on this one, we have an equal share across. I want to point out there's 2 of these traits that you should be aware of. There's neurotic, which is where you become anxious, and there is conscientious. And when those 2 are together, they can be kind of a problem because you get um, you're worried about all the details. You're trying to get everything working correctly, and it can drive up your anxiety, which then can lead to stress. So if you do have that toxic combination of being very conscientious and very neurotic, just take time out for yourself and work out how to turn up in a way that is not going to drive that stress. Very good. Great stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, if you do understand your personality, you will experience similar things to understanding your values. You will have enhanced self-awareness. It's kind of obvious because you're understanding more about yourself. You're also going to find improved relationships because you're going to say, oh, look, that person's acting very extrovert and that person's very conscientious, or I'm irritating them because I'm not conscientious, but they want me to be conscientious. So that's improved relationships. You can have a greater understanding of of people's motives and how they're thinking around the world. Career alignment. If you're in some kind of roles, you would say, does this actually match my personality traits? And then you'll have improved emotional intelligence because you'll be able to recognize things in others. So, personality traits, I mentioned them before. Here I put another QR code just to, these are like 4-minute quizzes. They're very quick. The reports are really quite comprehensive, but they're very quick quizzes to take. So I'm actually thankful that we got through this. I was a bit worried that the content might kind of overrun, so I'm pleased we got this far. So as you might recall, and I'm calling this out just to stimulate some questions, so we covered emotions and feelings, we covered your needs, we covered this concept of getting to conscious competence and unconscious competence, that how you show up depends on how much you know about yourself and others. And as an entrepreneur, you want to show up in a way that it creates success around yourself. Uh, why are we so different? It is nature and nurture, but some of us didn't grow up in very healthy conditions. But the good news is you can, when you recognize the things you're missing, you go chase them. And then in self-awareness, we learned about leadership styles, finding your purpose, your values, and your traits. So with that, Danny, I haven't not been looking at the comments or that have come in, but are there any questions, or we in the 5 minutes remaining, we could open up the mics, or we could encourage you to text in your questions. Up to you.
Fantastic, Eric. Well, first, thank you so much for your time today. We're really grateful for your expertise and what you shared with us. Fantastic session. Thank you so much. As Eric said, if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the chat. While you wait for that, I'm also putting into the chat a survey for you to take about the session. You'll also get this via email, so if you forget, you'll be getting it tomorrow, along with the recording of today's session. We do have a question here. For those of us who have been deep diving into these topics about ourselves for a long time, is there any more advanced research or strategies that you'd encourage us to look up?
That's a kind of difficult question. I can tell you that I am constantly learning about this subject because it's my role, and so uh, as much for myself, but also to impart this knowledge with others. And I tend to learn from listening to books. So I'm always looking out for books that I can listen to. I can't recall off the top of my head the kind of books, but I can remember the kind of books and not the title of books. But whatever your learning experience is, just learn for look for those deeper dives. The Surgeon General has come out with some great articles, for instance, and white papers on loneliness in modern society, on the trauma of youth, and the challenges of trauma of youth and how that turns up in our adult lives. There's books about these kind of subjects, and that's what takes my interest. So I think, follow your interest. Clearly, whoever's asked the question is takes care of their own learning, so that's good. Find more of the same.
Fantastic, Eric. I also just dropped into the chat a podcast that I've been listening to called Thinking on Thinking. That is actually from some of our other fellow presenters who have done other sessions for Startup, who have a podcast that's really helpful and very fun, where they talk about different topics.
That's great. Thank you.
But as we are coming to the end of our time, again, Eric, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. We're really grateful to be working with you and look forward to future sessions. For everybody else, thank you again for being with us. We look forward to hosting you at another Startup event. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Be great entrepreneurs.